Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the I'm Doing Great podcast, episode number whatever we're up to right now. I think it's 20. 20!
Is it?
Yeah, we made it 20
19?
episodes.
Oh, this is the 20th.
All right.
We made it.
Whoever thought? What a great day.
Who would have thunk?
Who'd have thunk it? I'm keeping my hood up for this episode.
I wish I had a hood, because then I could put my conspiracy theory hood on.
I almost asked you. Oh, yeah, that's right. Your conspiracy hood theory. I almost asked you to bring a lint roller, but luckily it's only the top half.
We have many of those because of the long-haired cats.
Long-haired cats. Yeah, a bunch to get. This isn't quite a debrief episode just because the last guest that we had on was Jay and now it's us again. But thanks, Jay, if you're watching. That was a fun episode.
That was great. I really like Jay. He's super smart. Like I said at the end of the episode, I almost feel like a normie talking to him. I'm like,
yeah, that could have gone on for a lot longer, I feel like. Yeah.
We'll have him back on again.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of stuff to talk about.
A lot.
You wanted to talk about a bunch of stuff. We got some good questions on the Instagram. And
good.
What else? What else are we going to talk about today?
Well, we're going to start by talking about, because we had a pretty explosive response when we were saying that your spouse is not your best friend.
Yes, that's right.
I don't know why that's such a controversial. Anyway, we'll get into that, and then we'll talk a little bit about William Thomas at the NCAA championships this weekend.
Yes.
And then we're going to get into the whale of today.
Yeah.
Dave Rubin and David Janet and their announcement of their two sons via surrogacy, which has sparked a lot of important conversations that I think we should be having.
Yeah, that's going to be covered. And then booklet. You brought a book, I see.
I brought one to talk about gay stuff.
Okay. All right. Well, I have a different sort of book list because we always get comments like, what kind of books are you guys reading and stuff like that. So I brought some books that are on my desk at home.
It looks like a Harry Potter book from here, but I don't think it is.
No, it's not. It is a work of fiction, but it's not Harry Potter. And then we have some questions that you guys submitted. Right. And then I think that's it.
I am not 12 years old. I realize I look very small and young in this episode. I mean, I always look like I'm 10, but I brought the chair down lower because I'm really short. In case you guys don't know, I'm very short. And so most chairs, my feet can't touch the ground. So I had to.
I don't think you're too short. What are you, 5'4"?
I wish. I'm
really?
like barely 5'2".
Really?
Yeah. Everyone who meets me
you are wearing heels.
I usually wear heels because I am a midget. I just hope my daughter's a little bit taller than I am when she grows up.
Okay.
But anyway.
Yeah.
So I am a bit lower today.
Oh yeah, don't hunch. Not good for the camera.
Okay.
Yeah, clarifying statements. Well, first we should probably address the fact that the type of discourse is different on different social media platforms. So the people who are commenting about your spouse shouldn't be your best friend on TikTok are completely different than the people talking about it on Instagram.
Right.
I feel like the people on Instagram are a little bit their thoughts are a little bit more thought out, which I guess they can be just because there's really no character limit.
Right.
They also seem a little bit more mature. People on TikTok, I feel like, are generally like 40 IQ points lower.
For sure.
On the average. So yeah, those comments there are a little disconcerting. And not because of what they're saying, just because of how they're saying it. So it makes me kind of feel a little hopeless for the future.
Society.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, clarify. What did you want to clarify about that? Because
first of all, by definition, if your husband is your friend, you have no physical intimacy with him.
Right.
Do you lie in bed with your friend? Do you hold hands and kiss and make love to any of your friends?
No.
I mean, just that, we could end the conversation there,
right?
And we could move on.
Well, when you do that, they bring it into, well, you're playing now like a syntax game, and we have to talk about the meaning of friend.
And my response to that would be, and when I said it's disrespectful to treat your husband like your friend, and this is what I mean by that, if you were to introduce your husband to family or a group of friends, would you say, "Oh, this is my friend. This is my friend Adriano"? No, right. If I introduce my husband as my friend, he would feel very disrespectful because he is much, much more than a friend. He's my husband.
Yeah.
And especially if we're talking about from a Christian perspective, I mean, when you marry somebody, you become one flesh. You become family. You become one unit. And that there's nothing about that is a friend.
Yeah.
I think it's actually a bit demeaning to think of your husband or your wife as your friend, because you don't treat your husband or wife the same way that you treat your friend.
Correct. Yeah. And I feel like you can trust your spouse. you can what's another characteristic? I feel like you can trust and you can respect your spouse to the utmost level. But I feel like there are certain things that you would rather vent or talk to about with a friend that maybe you wouldn't with your spouse. And
Right.
it's just weird that, especially women, you know what I mean? Like having a strong like core group of women friends is very important to a woman as it is to a guy. And there are certain things that you would much rather talk to
Yes.
with that group of people versus your spouse.
Yeah, like when I leave a voice note for Savannah Hernandez, if I'm leaving a voice note for her, sometimes my husband will look at me like, what are you talking, like, why are you talking like that? Because the way I talk to her is not the way I talk to him. Like by any means.
Yeah.
And also I actually think this points to kind of a greater societal issue with women is that women generally, I think, lack respect for their husband.
Mm-hmm.
And that manifests in a lot of ways. One of those ways that I think that women, because they think of their husband as their best friend, they don't make an effort to, it's going to sound shallow, but it's not. They don't make an effort to like seduce or be beautiful for their husband or to do things that show that you really, really respect your husband. So like, for example, Eva Mendes actually made a comment like this about being married to Ryan Gosling and people got mad about it. She was like, marriage rule, never wear sweatpants around your husband. And I mean, I don't think she means that literally, but I think what she means by that is like, you make an effort to appear beautiful to your husband because he's not just a friend. He's not just somebody that you kick back with and throw your shoes off and you know, talk crap with and be vulgar with. Like your husband is not necessarily that person. Like because I'm home all day, every day.
Yeah.
And my husband's coming home at like 7 or 8 o'clock. Sometimes if I don't wear makeup all day, like I put some makeup on before he gets home and I'll like put on different clothes. Yeah, I will because and I can see it in his eyes. He's like, you look so pretty.
Right.
And I try to do that for him because he's not just some friend, like he's my husband. And I want to make sure that that connection, that special, intimate connection stays that way. And now I know a lot of people respond and be like, yeah, but when you're 70 years old, you're not going to be having sex all the time. No, you're not, but you're still going to be doing things with your husband that you don't do with your buddy, like holding hands, dates, lying in bed, cuddling. Like he doesn't have to be intercourse.
Yeah, and this isn't to say that like you can't joke around with your husband or your wife, obviously, because that's who probably you're most comfortable around with to begin with. But it's like to talk about the male side of, you know, never wear sweatpants around your husband. Gavin once said, not a good idea to fart around your wife. Like it's just something that you don't want to do. And that's why I've always said that separate bathrooms is a key to a really, really good marriage, because it's not like a boundary thing, but it's kind of like, you know, human bodies are
keep the mystery.
Not even that, but you know, human bodies are kind of disgusting. When you have separate compartments to do what you have to do, that element of knowing how disgusting your partner is kind of not hidden, but it's not on display all the time.
I've only heard my husband fart once in our marriage, and he was like, it was an accident. He was like, I'm sorry.
Well, why do you think it is the meme is, you know, when guys go on a first date, they hold that farting on the whole date, and when they leave, that's kind of when they let it out. You know what I mean? So that's the same throughout a marriage. You don't want to necessarily do anything that makes you appear, you know, not unlikable, but unattractive to your spouse. And that's going to say, well, he's my best friend, so I can do whatever I want, because we feel so comfortable with each other. And a lot of the comments, especially on Instagram that I was looking at, were saying, well, you know, we were friends for 5 or 6 years before we ever got married, blah, like a lot of like that. And I was just like, well, what's the point of being friends for that long and then getting married?
And even if you were friends for 5 years before you got married, that means that you're no longer friends, you're married. Yeah. You know, it's like, and there were some comments that are like, you guys need to learn how to have fun with your spouse. I'm like, obviously you can have fun and joke and laugh with your spouse, but you're by definition, you're not friends. And there were some comments I saw a couple on Instagram. They're like, you know, my husband and I have been through a lot together, been through all kinds of trials and tribulations. I'm like, you're proving my point. Right. The fact that you have been through, my husband and I over the last year, like in 2021, what we went through was, he was a rock. He was there for me and our family in ways that I cannot put into words. And that is not the same as a friend. That's actually why I don't consider him to be my best friend, my friend.
Yeah, like, it would be disrespectful to call him your friend.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I agree with that. Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of the clarifying point to that. And I don't know. I think some people understood what we meant.
Well, I think the majority of people who describe. Well, it's very hard because when you see the stories of these people, well, we've been together for 20 years, that would mean that, this person's not like a 20-year-old. Because I think when you're 20 or when you're younger, you have this idealistic view of your husband or your wife being your best friend. And you can say that because we do everything together, best friends. But then a lot of the older women were saying, yeah, we've been together for 20 years married and, 25 years knowing each other. And we've been friends since high school. So I don't want to say that it's just a young person thing saying that,
right,
the spouse is the best friend.
Because I did hear see some older people saying
then
that.
I saw some words that kind of describe this person's personality, and I'm just like, oh, okay, this kind of person would say that the husband is the best friend because they're putting on a stranger's comment thread like the word hubby. It was like, my hubby is, my best friend. I'd be like, oh, okay, well, that's kind of like a red flag as far as,
I'm not kidding. I feel bad for all the husbands out there who have been friend zoned. I think it's a thing. I see so many husbands who have been friend zoned by their wife. And what I mean by that is the wife doesn't act very ladylike around him. She acts like she's one of the guys and they don't have sex very often. And it's like she has friend zoned him. And I feel bad for these men because good men deserve better than that.
Yeah.
Like you shouldn't be friend zoned.
Okay, so what would you tell any of the ladies who commented about their husbands being their best friends? What would you say to them that you can't say in an Instagram reply?
Well, I think what I just said is that just your reply proves to me that he's not your best friend because of everything that you have been through. Because you guys have been together for 25 years and you're one flesh, like that's not your friend. That's what I would say to them.
Yeah. But what about, I saw one that was like, well, I consider him my soulmate. And I was just like, well, what I said was, I was like, the media and a lot of these publications that are geared toward young women, like Teen Vogue, Cosmopolitan, Marie Claire, whatever. So many articles that you would see is like 10 ways to see if your boyfriend is your soulmate or whatever. So it's just like they sell this really weird Disney romanticized version of what marriage should be or what a soulmate should be. And honestly, I think that the word soulmate has been sort of diluted to just mean your husband, your wife. And it's like, I would say you and I are soulmates, right? I would say that if we're looking in a way where, for whatever reason, Gina and I were meant to meet and to do this show together. Mm-hmm. Like our souls have found each other and we have a sort of working and friendly relationship. I would say the same about my best friend in high school, college, up until this point. Like, oh, we are soulmates. Like we were supposed to meet for a reason. Like, the since the beginning of time and since the universe was created, our souls have been traveling throughout time and we're supposed to meet and we have a bond and we have a friendship. So to just boil down a soulmate to someone you marry is just, I think, using that term to sort of, I don't know, sort of just, I guess, confirm what these magazines have been telling you your whole life.
I take issue with the term soulmate for a lot of reasons. I mean, that too. And also, number one, it sets you up for failure because what if you don't find your soulmate, right?
Right, exactly.
And then number two, it makes marriage seem like a passive thing that falls into your lap as long as it's you'll only last if it's with the right person.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer that long-lasting marriage is a choice. And I actually don't think, we can get into this in a separate episode, I don't think that love is the foundation to a lifelong marriage. I think marriage is a choice. Every single day you choose to go through the trials and tribulations with your husband. That's why so many arranged marriages are really successful, because it wasn't necessarily founded on this spark that flew and we feel super attracted to each other and the lust that happens in the beginning and we're soulmates. It's like, no, you have made this choice. You've made this pact. As long as the person is compatible with you and you have the fundamental values that it takes, you made the difficult choice to be with this person and to commit to this person. And there will always be things that come along in life that give you a reason to split up. And there are more reasons to say, oh, well, that it turns out that person's not my soulmate, so we can get divorced.
Right, exactly. That's what I was just about to say. I was about to say, how many divorces, if you polled these people who got divorced, would say at the beginning of your marriage, would you consider this person a soulmate?
Right.
I'm sure a lot of people were like, yeah, I thought so at the time.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to say. Like, me saying my best friend is a soulmate, me saying you and us doing the show is a soulmate thing. Like, the fact is that words really don't mean anything anymore. So I can call any type of relationship I want, like a friendship, a best friendship, or whatever, a soulmate. So I think like these words that they use don't necessarily mean anything anymore because they've just been so
and it's very Hollywood. It's very, very Hollywood.
Yeah,
which is why
it's Disney.
It is Disney. Yeah, and it makes you also think if you're married to somebody like that movie, He's Just Not That Into You. Drew Barrymore is like, what do you do if you're married, but then your soulmate comes into your life and you realize that you're meant to be together? No, wrong. That's not how it is. It's not like you're married to somebody and then your soulmate comes along and then you have a reason to get divorced. Like, that's such a Hollywood thing to say.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's that.
Did we clear that up? Probably not.
Too bad.
Yeah.
If you feel confused still. You want to talk William Thomas? That
cheater? we can talk William Thomas.
Man, that guy.
We can talk William Thomas or whatever.
Someone needs to drop kick him, really. I don't even know. You know what? What else is there to say that hasn't been said about this guy?
I was thinking about something yesterday. I was thinking about, had this person having this identity, would he have been having this identity crisis on his own? I would have said, fine, it's something this person has to deal with. You know, I have some compassion for someone who's struggling with a mental illness. I get that. The fact that media has propped this guy up, hasn't called him out for basically ruining, infiltrating, and demeaning a whole sport, especially, do I care about women's sports? No, I don't. I don't care. I don't watch the WNBA. I don't watch the Olympics. I don't care really about that aspect of it. What I do care about is the media and political figures trying to warp our reality, my reality, and say that something like this is okay. That's where I have the problem. And I'm not going to stand on a soapbox and just say this is wrong, because you know what? We honestly deserve this as a culture right now.
Yep.
I'm sorry. We just do.
Yep.
Because this is what you get. And a lot of people, I get that they want to feel good about themselves, about being inclusive, and they want people's happiness. Hey, as long as it doesn't hurt me or do anything to me, you know, that's fine. But it comes to a point where I think you have to look at it from a cultural point of view and just recognize that, you know, a lot of cultures in the past, people talk about this all the time, a lot of cultures in the past have fallen because of this sort of warping of reality and sexual deviation from the norms and stuff like that. So yeah, I feel very I don't feel passionate about it. I feel kind of black-pilled about it in that I don't care. Kind of like, this is what we got.
This is my
I don't
thought.
care anymore. I'm not going to fight for it. I don't really care.
I'm going to piggyback off that and say, I also kind of don't care, because you know what? This is your fault. All of the parents whose daughters are swimming in this charade, it's your fault. All of the coaches, this is your fault. Even some responsibility goes to those young women. I understand that it's difficult to be a 19-year-old or whatever. Maybe you get a scholarship and you go into your freshman year not having no idea that this William Thomas thing was going to happen. But all of you who are showing up to that meet, whether you're a swimmer, a parent, a bystander, a coach, every single person who has shown up to the NCAA championship this weekend, this is all your fault, because you are playing into the charade. And then you act upset. Yeah. And then you're acting mad like it's some big injustice. You're playing into it. This wouldn't happen. Okay, so there will always be creeps and con artists and predators like William Thomas who try to pull a fast one on us. There will always be bad actors in the world, because it's human nature. Humans are inherently not good. Some are worse than others. And so there will always be the William Thomases of the world who try to come in and wreck same-sex spaces, wreck women's sports, whatever. The responsibility at the end of the day isn't even on this weirdo William Thomas. It's on the community of people who are consistently allowing him to compete against the girls. So I'm almost on the same page as you. I almost have nothing left to give. Like, why are you guys even showing up to the NCAA championships? This is all your fault.
Yeah,
you
a protest to it would have been nice.
They did have a protest. There were some women, like women's rights activists who were there. Sav was on the ground. She interviewed them, and it was cool to see that. But what was weird to me is that one of the girls that Sav interviewed, and we can throw up the link in the description, one of the girls said, 16 of William Thomas's teammates have written a letter and asked us to come here and advocate for them today. I am here for all those women who have been humiliated. And I'm like, I'm really glad you're here, girl. Awesome. But why are those 16 teammates swimming?
Yeah.
Why are you in that pool? You need to call a women's rights activist group to come in and protest on your behalf, but you're gonna play along with the charade and get in the pool with him?
Yeah, the protest would be not to swim.
The protest would be not to swim. Like, the only reason that William Thomas is standing on that, did you see the picture where like the three girls were on the other end standing together like this, and William Thomas was like standing by himself? He wouldn't even be on that podium if you guys didn't show up and got in the pool with him. You are all making the choice, and all of you coward parents out there who are letting your girls still go to school and still get into that pool with them. Why? Because you're afraid that your daughter may lose a scholarship. Your daughter may lose a year of college. If you think it's worth it for them to go through this charade, it's obviously worth it for you, for your daughter to lose and lose and lose, or else, you would have pulled them out a long time ago. So I'm almost at a point where, like, I don't feel bad for you. I don't feel bad for any of these girls who have had their records stripped away from them and their potential future stripped away from them, because, like, you guys are playing along. What do you expect?
Yeah. I mean, as a conservative dude, I at the start of all this stuff, I obviously thought this is wrong. This is theft. But then as it's gone on, you've seen conservative, quote unquote, conservative people kind of praise this person and saying how we should all be inclusive. And that's the point where I'm just like, okay, I mean, there's nothing that's going to be done about these types of things ever.
No.
I don't understand it. I don't get it. And what's going to come of me, getting all up in a tizzy about it? Nothing. No, really. Nothing. I genuinely don't care. Like, the dude's a freak. I'd call him a he to his face. Like, that's how I feel about all transgender. Blair White, I would call Blair White whatever his given name is.
I would have him on the show.
I'm tired of that shit. People keep on telling me, get Blair White on the show. No, fuck that, dude. Like, why would I want a psychopath on my show? I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't fuck with people who have, like, mental illnesses. I just don't, because, putting a camera on them just isn't right. I think that exacerbates things. I don't fuck with it.
I can totally understand that. I mean, that's actually probably the better choice to take, because I would have been like, oh, we can have him on the show to have a discussion. But it's like, what's the point?
I'm not entertaining that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's actually, I like that. I appreciate that, because it's like, why give him the platform? It's like, because there are a lot of conservatives that prop him up as like, oh, he understands there are two genders. And I'm like, yeah, but he thinks he's a woman. So
the whole idea of transgenderism is absolutely ridiculous when you really start to think about it. And on the show, you've seen me try to think about it and try to wrap my head around it. And I mean, I even spoke to a geneticist the other day. I was out with some friends, and one of the people was a geneticist, a PhD. And I was just saying, it's kind of weird that, these bodies that we're in, when we die, they go into the ground. Whatever you believe happens after that. And you're not in a body anymore. Your soul will travel throughout the universe. Your soul will go to heaven. Your soul will go to hell based on whatever you believe. I don't necessarily believe in a heaven or a hell. I think we exist in heaven right now. That's kind of how I see it.
This is definitely not heaven.
No, I think it is, because we simply do not know. So if I want to attach a term to this gift of life, I'm going to call it heaven. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but that's how I look at it now. But regarding transgenderism is, if you believe in a soul, your soul doesn't have a body. Your soul doesn't have a form. So what is the point of you, dismembering it or changing the physical features of it because of how you feel? The way you feel isn't physical. The way you feel is mental. So I've never understood the physical need to change your body.
Yeah.
So the whole idea behind transgenderism, I just don't get. I've never understood it, and it's clearly a mental defect that someone has to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, it is a dysphoria. It is truly a mental illness, the same way that, like bipolar disorder or schizophrenia or whatever. I mean, but look, going back to what I was saying about parents, I know that there are actually a couple of parents who have been taking a stand and pulling their kids out from sports teams like this. I think there was one parent at UCLA or something, but they're few and far between. So obviously those parents are not lumped into this category of people that I'm blaming because it is their fault. But the problem is that there's just not enough. Okay, what? There's 3 of you? Like, there's just not enough of you. Right, that's what I'm saying. There's not enough of you. And this is why
the whole corporate machine and media machine is on the other side.
And here's the thing, like, if all of those girls currently at the NCAA championships, the women's at swim and diving championship, if none of them showed up, yes, they would probably lose a scholarship. They would probably lose a whole year of swimming.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, this is much bigger than you. Like, this is much bigger than your daughter's year at UPenn.
I just don't get it, because aren't there rules about taking drugs or chemical enhancements to your body while competing in sport?
Yeah, I mean, the NCAA definitely has rules, but I don't think that William Thomas.
But if you're chemically altering
your body in some way, I don't know.
Either if it is advantageous or disadvantageous, it doesn't matter, because you are using chemical enhancements, right? Like,
apparently, yeah. But this is actually
what was the meme? Someone was saying that Leah Thomas should now be the first woman in male swimming.
I didn't see that.
Like, yeah, she should compete against men now.
Oh, right. Yeah, and then be a hero for becoming the first woman to.
Exactly.
And then we'll be ranked like 460.
Yeah, I've been saying this for God knows how long, but women aren't women anymore. They don't want they're trying to erase women. I've been saying it, and people have been like, Mike, I think you're exaggerating a little bit. I'm like, okay.
Also, like, women are the ones who are mostly responsible for this, because women are the ones who have, on a mass scale, ushered in intersectional ideology, and they've ushered in all these woke things like trans and trans kids and drag queens in schools, and even boiling down to redefining marriage. Like, on a mass scale, statistically, women are more likely to support all that. So you made your bed, lie in it, ladies.
Bill Clinton, I think, was voted in. I think he helped the group who helped him the most winning election in either both or the first one in '92 was women. So during the whole Monica Lewinsky scandal, and this is after the Ken Starr report came out, the tapes came out that detailed all of the sexual acts that Bill and Monica did inside the Oval Office and inside the White House. A group of feminists made a statement publicly defending Bill Clinton, saying that he's the first president to be elected by women. He's the first president to endorse, feminism and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, this is also after, like, it was asserted that Bill Clinton raped Juanita Broderick. So I'm just saying feminists are no good for anything.
No, they're really not. No, they're really, really not.
No. And the ones that are there are people like J.K. Rowling that are just like, no, I'm not going to entertain this, but they get pilloried.
Yeah.
Yeah. The TERFs, the trans exclusionary radical feminists. No, people have marked them as crazy people now. You get what you deserve. I'm sorry. I kind of almost was at the point where I was like, I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, because that's why I said at the beginning, it's like, what else is there to say? So, okay, well, let's just move on to the hot topic of today. Dave Rubin and his husband David Janet made the announcement that they are welcoming 2 sons into their home via surrogacy. So one son's going to be born in like August, another one in October. So it's 2 different women.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot to unpack here, guys. This announcement has opened the door for a lot of different conversations that I have been thinking a lot about. And there's definitely going to be a part of this discussion where it's going to be a bit of a monologue. I already texted Mike and I warned him that I'm going to talk a lot about a couple of topics that have risen out of Dave and David's announcement. So I think a good way to break this down is, number one, let's talk about the conservative response to Dave and David's announcement. And then number two, we'll talk about homosexuality, whether gay people should marry and adopt. And number 3, we can kind of talk a little bit about surrogacy itself, which is an important discussion to have. So first of all, Dave and David announcing their kids via surrogacy. This, and I said this on my Instagram page and I went on my stories and I talked about this. This isn't even about Dave and David at the end of the day, because neither ever claimed to be conservative, neither claimed to be Christian. Dave Rubin has always been clear that he's a classical liberal, and he doesn't call himself conservative. So when he made the announcement, I was like, yeah, okay, libs are going to lib, libs going to lib. And I had known that Dave and David were trying via surrogacy to have kids. And this conversation honestly is difficult for me because I've met Dave. I've been on his show. When I was working for Candace, it's actually funny. It was the day before California got locked down for COVID in 2020. Dave and David welcomed me into their home when I was working for Candace, and we spent a lot of the day there because Candace was going on his show. The next day I was supposed to go on his show, but we ended up flying out early because we were like, we are not getting locked down in California. Because back then nobody knew what was going on. We didn't know if they were going to shut the borders of California and not let you fly out. And that day we spent a few hours with Dave and David, and Candace and I were even at his house while they went to Whole Foods and did a grocery run. And they said it was like the apocalypse at Whole Foods. It was just crazy. People were freaking out. And both Dave and David were really good to me that day. They've always been welcoming to me. And so I don't want this conversation to be like, let's bash Dave and David. Let's burn them at the stake. They're degenerates. That's not the direction that this conversation is going to go, because at the end of the day, the issue that I take is with conservatives' response to Dave and David.
Okay.
As soon as they made that announcement, PragerU, The Blaze, and a multitude of other conservative influencers who I'm not going to name because it's public, you can go look for yourself who it was, congratulated them, talked about what a blessing it was, and were overjoyed for these 2 boys coming into their home via surrogacy. And this is my issue. What are we conserving if we are not even conserving the nuclear family? And this is why conservatives, we deserve to lose. This is why Bryson said this on the show when he was here. He says, I hate this movement with a passion. And I agree with him 100%. I texted Bryson. I was like, I hate all of these phony conservatives who are so willing to let their values fall, just fly away with the wind. They're more than willing to redefine marriage.
Yeah.
They're more than willing to redefine the nuclear family. And people like Matt Schlapp, they're more than willing to redefine gender. And this is what's so crazy to me is that Libs of TikTok is a really popular Twitter account. And she always posts these videos of crazy trans people who have kids.
Mm-hmm.
And she did this huge congratulations post to them. And I'm like, effectively, what is the difference as a conservative? Effectively, what is the difference between a gay couple having kids and a trans couple having kids?
Right.
What's the difference? Because if nuclear family means nuclear family to you, which is a mother and a father and children, then why is it totally okay for you to see gay guys have kids, but it's laughable and disgusting when trans people have kids? You guys are such phonies.
Yeah.
You're this is why I don't want to unite with any of you. I want more division. I want to draw a hard line in the sand. If you do not accept the definition of marriage and the definition of the nuclear family, what are you even doing here? Yeah. What are you even doing calling yourself a conservative?
Yeah, that's why I asked Jay when we had him on the show, what do you consider yourself as far as your political ideology? Are you apolitical or not? And his answer was kind of I'm libertarian sometimes on certain things and conservative. I don't necessarily even think I want to call myself a conservative anymore.
I know. It means nothing these days.
That's what I'm saying.
It means nothing.
Yeah, and I'm kind of just giving up about it because you have conservatives now who are in favor of gun control, which doesn't make any sort of sense. They'll claim that they support the Second Amendment, but while they're in Congress, they're voting on bills that would sort of infringe on the Second Amendment. You have conservatives who talk about upholding the First Amendment with free speech, but then they're the ones who are saying this person should be canceled for this person should be canceled for that. And it's just those conservative values, especially the ones who are talking about low taxes, low government, but then they're conservatives in the Congress who approve these fucking spending bills all the time. And I'm just saying, what is a conservative anymore? There was a question on Instagram. It was like, well, can you guys explain what rhinos are? And I was just gonna say, rhinos are mostly reserved for political figures, for political candidates, where they say Republican in name only. But now, that can really be applied to anybody who wants to appear to be conservative in public, and then are just espousing all of these, not even liberal, but sort of leftist views or just totally non-conservative views. So that's why I'm kind of, I don't know. I think I got the black pill.
I think you did. Because here's the thing, guys. And I want to also preface this by saying that we can have this discussion without being unkind, without being rude to Dave and David. We don't have to call them names. You don't have to tell them that they're going to hell or say anything rude about them or to them. You don't have to. But at the same time, we must acknowledge that this is a perversion of the nuclear family.
Yeah.
That announcement, I'm sorry. And I would say this to Dave's face. I would have a discussion with him about it. It's not like I'm gossiping behind his back. And again, we can say this without being rude, but two gay guys creating two children in a petri dish and renting a woman's womb to birth them is a perversion of the nuclear family.
Is it any different that if a male and a female couple did this?
That's going to be part 3 when we're talking about surrogacy. Because
in this monologue?
Later, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because that's kind of like, there are more things that I think are pressing to talk about this issue.
Okay.
I mean, talk about.
All right, I can't interrupt it then. So go on.
But I mean, that is a question. I mean, surrogacy is a really tough one to talk about because human life is not a commodity. A woman's body and a woman's womb is not a commodity. However, I do know couples who have had to use surrogacy services to conceive. Mm-hmm. And I also acknowledge that, like, back in the day, there were plenty of women. It wasn't like the majority. It was a small minority, but there were women who birthed kids for parents who were not able to conceive. This is not like a new thing.
Right.
It's a tough one. And to be quite honest, I don't know enough about surrogacy in the industry to have a hard line opinion on it. I know some people who do, but
get back on track.
But when you look at this announcement of Dave and David and these two boys, like, it is objectively a perversion of the nuclear family. And the fact that conservatives are celebrating this, and a lot of major conservative names I know don't agree with it. I mean, I'm not saying that they have to come out and condemn them publicly. I'm not even saying that. You don't have to condemn them publicly.
You don't have to do anything publicly.
You don't
How about
have to. Yeah, you don't have to disavow them. I'm not saying that, you conservatives who are silent on this, you must speak up. No, but what is wrong is
the propping up of it. Yeah. Yeah, I get
what's
that.
Wrong is praising it and congratulating
It's confusing.
and pretending like this is a blessing. It's not. It is wrong, guys. And as conservatives, if we are going to win at anything, because right now we're losing, and one of the reasons why we're losing is because we don't have any real values. It's because we already let our country redefine marriage, and now we're allowing people to redefine what a nuclear family is, and we're allowing the country to redefine what gender is. So what's next? And it's because a slippery slope is a real thing. And it really makes my blood boil that, because, obviously, like, I'm a huge fan of Nick now. I watch like almost every single one of his live streams. It makes me so angry that conservatives are totally willing to condone and praise and glorify and accept this perverted version of the nuclear family. And yet they ostracize and persecute and censor real conservatives like Nick Fuentes. Yeah. That actually really pisses me off, because it's like, you people are such phonies. The people who have true conservative values, who aren't afraid to stand up and say, this is right, this is wrong, and we are going to follow Christian morals.
Sure, yeah.
Like,
and if that's how you identify, then of course you would agree with Nick. So it's weird for someone who would identify as a conservative to go along and praise what the Daves are doing. It's hypocritical.
It is.
And that's what's so confusing about it.
It's wrong. And again, like I said, this is not an open door to go and berate them or be unkind to them. That's not what this is. But you can still be compassionate and kind and tell the truth.
Well, what we're doing is we're analyzing something from a cultural point of view, and not even necessarily a political point of view, because it doesn't have anything to do with policy or anything like that. but we're talking about it from a cultural point of view, and we're having an honest conversation with ourselves and amongst conservatives, or at least people who call themselves conservatives.
Yes.
Because, leftists don't watch the show, or liberals don't watch this show, or I'd be surprised if they did. But we're basically talking to you guys, and we're asking you, do you agree?
Yeah.
Do you disagree? How do you feel about this as well? And like you said, it's not an open invitation to go bash people, because obviously, I was thinking about this. I was sort of like, am I happy for them? Like, yeah, I value people's happiness at a cost, though, of what's going on here and how it kind of breaks down the idea of what a family is. I'm not happy for that. So I'm kind of like arguing with myself in my head, because I know that's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But I also know that, who am I to judge someone's happiness in a way? But at the same time, it's just, again, it's like that black pill comes along and it's like, why are you caring about this? There's nothing you can do about it.
It's really hard. It's especially hard for me because, like I said,
the black pill is going to be my background. There's just going to be a black pill.
Just a black pill.
Yeah.
It's especially hard for me because, like I said, I met Dave and David, and like I remember being in their house and be like, if any gay couple could raise kids the right way, like it would be them.
Yeah, you've said that before.
And it's hard for me to say this, but it's still wrong. As a conservative Christian, it's still wrong, and it's going to be a no for me, dog. Do you know what I mean?
How about take the conservative away as a Christian? Is
Definitely.
it still wrong?
It's still wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing about what if you take the Christian away just as a conservative?
Right.
That's a question. And this is my answer to that. And I know this is a very inconvenient truth. Conservative values came from Christianity.
Yeah.
That does not mean that you have to be a Christian to be conservative. It doesn't mean that you have to be a Christian to appreciate traditional American values. But the founding fathers created this country, all the values, everything came from the Bible. So if you are conserving traditional American values, they come from the Bible. They're biblical. Again, that doesn't mean that you have to be Christian.
Yeah.
But it's just objectively that's where these morals come from. And I want to live in a world where we recognize objective morals. And those objective morals, because they are objective, they can't change just because you like somebody or you're friends with somebody.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So that's
it's just, there's been Hollywood portrayals of kids being raised by men because of situations. You think of, there's that movie like 3 Men and a Baby, finding this baby and they have to raise this baby.
It sounds like a skit.
Well, yeah, but yeah, the of course, a same-sex couple, and I've said this before, of course, a same-sex couple can raise a child. The question is, should they? And my answer to that is probably like a 97.894% no.
See, for me, it's either a yes or no across the board because we can't change things. We can't base the answer off of exceptions to the rule. So I mean, that's for me. For me, it's a no for me, dog. But it's hard. This is hard. I know. And all the conservatives listening to this, I know it's hard. And I know it's especially hard for conservatives who are friends with Dave. I mean, I wouldn't call myself friends with Dave. I met him, but I'm not friends with him. And I know that it's hard for a lot of conservatives who are friends with him and who work with him. But I think that there is a way to recognize that this is against our values and still and not be unkind.
Well, wait a minute. Hold on. Didn't Ben Shapiro not go to Dave Rubin's wedding? Like he was invited, but he didn't go?
I don't know about that.
I think I remember hearing about that.
I mean,
just because of Ben Shapiro's religious beliefs, he's like, I can't be a party to something we consider immoral and sinful.
Right. I mean,
like, okay.
Allie Stuckey is a good example. I know she's talked about this on her show, and I know she's talked about this to Dave. Allie's a good example. She's not someone who berates them. She doesn't call them names, but she does fundamentally disagree with their lifestyle and their choices. But she is still able to be respectful and like friendly. And I think that's the stance we need to take, is we need to be strong with our values, but that doesn't mean that you have to be a jerk. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So that's kind of where I am right now. But I'm still angry at all the conservatives who are pretending like this is awesome. And like even even like so-called Christian conservatives that I personally know are commenting and be like, this is so great, guys. We should celebrate a nuclear family, whatever that family looks like. Literally, they write, we should celebrate family, whatever that family looks like. I'm sorry. What's the difference between trans people having kids then? I'm sorry. What's the difference between parents raising their kids trans? Because, hey, that's just another family, right? It makes me so mad, Mike. It makes me so mad because conservatives, you're spineless, you're cowards, you stand on nothing, and you're willing to throw your values out the window just because it's convenient for you and your buddies.
Well, my only response that I think anyone would have to that would just be something along the lines of, imagine being this upset for a child having a home with two loving parents.
Yeah, I know that's a response because that's an intellectually dishonest and it's just a low IQ response, to be honest. Because
the thing to me that I think would have been a little bit more commendable, still different, and I wouldn't necessarily side with it, was that if they were adopting. Correct.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I really think that this, I was texting about this with Josh Lakash, who's going to be on the show soon. It's like, I'm sorry, but it's a selfish thing to create kids as if there's some sort of commodity and rent multiple women's wombs.
And it's all these dystopian movies which people are like, whoa, be careful, we're getting there, 1984.
The Handmaid's Tale.
The Handmaid's Tale, or whatever. What was that movie with Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman? Anyway, but it's just like, now babies are being created to, little petri dish babies are being created to suit the needs of people who, can't physically create life. It's kind of, it's designer shopping in a way. You know what I mean? It's kind of perverse if you think about it.
It is a perversion. So like I said, my qualms are with the conservatives. And for those of you who ask, well, what do you care how it affects you? It has a very real effect on society, how we stand up for our values. It has very real effects, how conservatives, how willing we are to fight for what's true and what's right. That matters.
Who's the guy that was on Elijah's show yesterday?
Oh, I didn't know.
People have sent me to him. People have suggested him
Is
once
it You
or
Are
twice.
Here or
it was on. The guy was on You Are Here last night. And I've seen his. Was it Jocko
Buyans?
Yeah, he had mentioned, and I hear this talking point a lot, and I mentioned it before, that there are civilizations who have crumbled due to like sexual liberation and sort of sexual deviousness. Whereas like Greeks and their love of young boy sex and the sacrificing of children in the town square and stuff like that. And I mean, honestly, this is kind of what's happening now.
Yeah.
And I kind of agree to him to an extent that that this is probably the start of that downfall. It's just weird. I see us becoming more and more like some sort of Gene Roddenberry idea of a civilization. It's the guy who created Star Trek. So it's like this civilization of people who there are no such thing as any sort of sovereign governments anymore. It's a one planet kind of thing, and just all different types of weirdos running around with each other.
So what happens when you keep moving the goalposts? Things are either right or they're wrong, or that's it. If you keep moving the goalposts, okay, well, we'll redefine marriage. Okay. All right, well, then we'll redefine family. We'll redefine children, like what it means to have a child.
Yeah.
So the second thing that this topic brings up is a little more nuanced. And it might be, I'm going to warn some people out there, this might be a little bit jarring for you to hear, but it's something.
Can you try and do something before you get into it? Can you try and move the mic so that it's kind of like not in front of you, but just it's facing more towards your mouth? Yeah, kind of like that, because when you talk to me, it's like off to the side.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
We're good to go. Good to go. So the second topic that this announcement brings up is generally we talked about, should homosexuals get married and have kids, but this is going to sound like it's not related, but it is. So I talked about this extensively with Regis, who is our mutual friend that named the show. He is an artist. He is an incredible thinker. He's a celibate gay man. And he is a very thoughtful person who is a very devoted Christian. I should also say that, which is why he's celibate. And one of the things I want to talk about is why do we see so many gay people, including Christian gays? I know Dave Rubin's not Christian, never claimed to be, but let's shift the conversation a little bit. Why do we see so many gay guys, gay women adopting children and creating a family? And a lot of Christians are kind of accepting of that for the most part. So why do we see this happening on a mass scale? So Regis and I talked about this, and I bought this book to kind of help explain a couple of things. So the sort of current day Christian response to homosexuality is it's a sin. We condemn it. We do not condone it. We do not celebrate it. There's no place for it in the church. There's no place for it in culture or the Christian communities. And yes, I understand that. But what I think a piece that's really missing is that when we talk about sexual sin, so sexual sin is sexual sin. And again, guys, I'm talking from a Christian perspective. So if you're not Christian, I know this may not be interesting to you, but I think most of our viewers are Christian, judging by the comments and stuff.
Yes. And I'll exclude myself from that because, I'm in that sort of weird period in my life right now. So I'm not going to say that I consider myself Christian, even though, you know what I mean? So I just don't want to say like Mike's a hardcore Christian. So
I get that. I'm speaking from a Christian perspective.
Okay.
And I know a lot of people listening are Christian. So when we talk about sexual sin, what is the sin of homosexuality? Biblically, we understand that the sin is the act of gay sex, right? Sodomy. That is very clearly what is called out as sin in the Bible. Here's the thing, guys. Sexual sin is sexual sin in God's eyes. And what I mean by that is someone who watches porn regularly, someone who's having premarital sex, adultery, these are just as much of a sexual sin as gay sex. And the strange thing that's happening in the Christian community is that the same people who will condemn homosexuality as if it's the worst thing in the world, they're actually pretty accepting of their daughter or their friend or themselves living with a boyfriend before they get married and having sex before marriage. That is like culturally accepted, even obviously by mainstream culture, but even in Christian circles, right? That's accepted. Adultery is pretty easily forgiven in most cases because it's kind of like, okay, it happens. We're going to forgive that, but sexual sin is sexual sin, which is why anybody who watches porn regularly, you have no right to condemn the gay lifestyle because you are living in sexual sin just as much as someone who's having gay sex. Okay. Again, coming from a Christian perspective. And I'm going to recommend this book called Holy Sexuality in the Gospel by Dr. Christopher Yuan. He's a friend of mine. He played a very important role in my marriage to my husband now, and he's kind of a mentor of mine. He's a brother in Christ. He's an incredible person who's going to come on the show. He was gay, living the gay lifestyle in his 20s. He was selling drugs while he was in dental school, got busted by the feds, went to federal prison. I'm going to let him tell the whole story because it's truly incredible. But he came to Jesus in prison and he had a conversion experience. And when he left prison, he devoted his life to God. And he's now a pastor, a speaker, an author. And he talks a lot about homosexuality and holy sexuality. And he's a celibate man. And he travels everywhere with his mother for accountability because he has same-sex urges. And I think one thing that Christians are totally missing out on and we refuse to accept is that there are people out there who have same-sex urges. And those urges in and of themselves are not a sin. Just like a guy who's married to a woman, he will have an urge to sleep with a woman who is not his wife. The sin is not the urge. The sin is the fantasy, fantasization, the fantasizing about it and the acting on it. That's the sin. But
what about people who have pedophilic urges?
That's the thing, right?
Because that's what's been talked about now more recently.
Yes.
Is these pedophiles who don't act on the urges, but they have the urges.
Right. Yeah. Oh God, that is. Oh. I know that's a really tough one. I mean, look, it's not.
I almost
okay.
didn't bring it up, but I kind of had to hold you accountable a little bit.
Yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying, and I mean, it is really unfortunate that those people have those urges. But the way that the left is responding to that is they're normalizing it and they're saying it's okay.
Right.
They're saying that we should accept that. But here's the thing the left is doing: they're making it their identity. minor attracted persons.
Right.
And this is what this book talks about, is that your sexual urges are not your identity.
Okay.
So that is wrong what they're doing, right?
Right.
And unfortunately, because we live in an imperfect world and we're human, unfortunately, some people have sick urges.
Yeah.
Okay. And unfortunately, some people have urges to have sex with people of the same sex, right? Homosexual urges. But this book covers it really well that those urges, they do not make up your identity. And it's just like a person will have an urge to lie, to cheat, to steal. A person will have an urge to kill.
Yeah.
You know, we're humans, and humans are not inherently good. This is kind of like the whole theology of Christianity, is that humans are not inherently good people, which is why we need Christ. We find sanctification in Jesus. We find salvation in Jesus. We find wholeness in Jesus, right? Because we're sick people. We're humans and we're broken. So Christopher Yuan talks about this beautifully in this book. He says that, you know, some people do have same-sex urges, and that in and of itself does not make them a monster. It doesn't make them somebody that you should condemn to hell, right? However, that does not mean that you should celebrate and condone the act of gay sex. The secret here is celibacy, right? And so brings me to a different point that Regis and I talked about. Up until like fairly recently in history, probably 100 to 200 years ago, there were spaces in society and even in Christian communities that sort of like welcomed in and allowed men who had same-sex urges to, number one, be celibate, and number two, devote their life to a different purpose in a way to glorify God, right? Because here's the thing, Christopher talks about this in his book. Not everyone is meant to get married and have children. Jesus talks about this in the Bible. He talks about singleness, like this singledom, and he talks about finding your brothers and sisters in Christ. And some are not meant to be married, and that's okay. And I don't know the exact scriptures, but if you read this book, Christopher obviously lays it all out about where it is in the Bible that Jesus says that. But some people are not meant to get married and have children, and some of those people are people who have same-sex urges. Mm-hmm. And so Regis and I were talking about how celibacy is that key missing point, right? Because instead of like condemning these people who have same-sex urges to be like gross and evil and degenerates, or instead of like what liberals do is prop them up and say, it's okay, this is part of who you are, you were born this way. Both of those are wrong. What we should be doing is people who have same-sex urges, they have a place in the church, in Christian communities, in society. They used to anyway. And some of those examples of places where they had to go was art, culture. Like, what's the stereotype of gay guys? They're incredibly creative. Mm-hmm. They actually statistically have a high IQ. They're really funny, which is why if you think about one of the reasons why the left is winning culture, they got all the gay guys on their side, right? Gay men understand art and culture in a way I think is a gift. I think it's a gift in a way that many other people can't understand it. And so, you know, prior to 100 to 200 years ago, and Regis points to like post-war Christianity, like the 40s and 50s, we're in this strange place where like, everything's okay. We're going to pretend like everything's okay. Like these gay people don't exist. We're just going to pretend, right? And we're just going to shun them. They don't exist.
Yeah, and arrest them and throw them. Well, was that in England that had the, what do they call those laws? Like Alan Turing. Yeah,
exactly. That's a great example. Yeah. And so Regis points to like before that, gay men, and I use the term gay lightly because gay celibate is the term we should be using, because remember, it's the gay sex that is the sin. Gay celibate men had a place in art, in academia, and in the clergy. Yeah. Okay. So especially talking about academia, Regis pointed out this fact to me that prior to 1877, Oxford University professors were not allowed to marry. So someone who's not going to get married and have kids, Christopher's a great example, they are able to devote their life, their energy, and their talent elsewhere. Because you're married and you have a child, you know how much it takes to be a family man. It takes a lot. It's not easy. As a woman, being a mom and a wife, it's a lot, right? And so you can't really do both. You can't devote your life to something else if you're a husband and a father. So what these gay celibate men had were spaces where they were able to devote their life to academia, devote their life to study, to discovering, devote their life to the clergy, because this is like a misconception. I know we texted a little bit about this yesterday. Well, because Mike responded, and it was a devil's advocate that he played. He said, well, wouldn't that open the door for like pedophilia in in clergy, priests, pastors, whatever.
Yeah.
And he pointed to the Catholic Church as having high rates of pedophilia. Myth busting time. You've been lied to by the media. I'm not even Catholic, and I'm saying this. There are no more pedophiles in the Catholic Church than there are in Protestant churches, in synagogues, in schools, anywhere that has a lot of kids present. There are going to be pedophiles, unfortunately, because humans are humans, and some humans are sick and they act out on those sick urges. So just because someone has same-sex urges doesn't automatically mean that they're going to be abusing kids, right? Because we like to think that the Catholic Church has like really, really high levels of pedophilia, but Matt Walsh talks about this, John Dola talks about this, Ali Stuckey talks about this. I think I've heard Nick talk about it too. That's a lie. There are no higher rates of pedophilia in the church than you would see at school. Public school has the same rates of pedophilia, but the state-run media doesn't want you to know that, right? They don't want you to know that there are just as many pedophiles in your kid's school as there are at your church, right?
But is it that movie's about what was it, Spotlight in Boston? They do that.
They like to so, you know, and I think that because the media and mainstream culture, there's always an attack on Christianity. Yeah. Always, whether that takes the form of Catholicism or Protestant Christianity, there's always attack on Christianity because Christianity is a threat to them and what they pose to our country. So getting back to what I was saying, the clergy used to be a place for men who had same-sex urges to declare celibacy and devote their life to God and devote their life to Christians, to help lead Christians, because they weren't distracted by a wife and children, right? So this is a discussion that Regis and I had, and I think one of the reasons why we're seeing so many gay guys appropriate what it means to be a parent, a father, and a husband is because we no longer have these spaces for gay men to be celibate, number one, and to devote their life to a greater purpose, right? It's like all they have is, oh, well, I gotta fit into this mold of getting married and having kids. Like, this is what I want to do. And this is, you know, I'm allowed to do this. So it's a really interesting thing that I wanted to talk about today, because it really points to, I think it's a call to action for Christians that just because someone has same-sex urges, that's no worse than your urges to watch porn all the time. It's no different. Sexual sin is sexual sin. And so I think once we can accept that some people do naturally have same-sex urges, that in and of itself is not a sin. What we should be doing is creating a space for them and speaking about what it means to be single, what it means to be celibate, what it means to be, as long as you are living a life that glorifies God, that your same-sex urges do not define you and they're not part of your identity.
Yeah, I feel like Truman Capote is does he have that vibe of like a gay celibate man?
Huh.
That's just how he's been portrayed. Like in any movie that you've ever seen where, you know, it was either about his life or, because there have been a couple movies. The one where Philip Seymour Hoffman played him, and then the other movie about, I forget what the other movie was. But, you know, they never showed him in a relationship with a man. You just kind of knew he was gay.
Yeah. And I mean, this is, you know, it's actually a great example. This is a playwright, author, like a very important person in the culture, like Michelangelo, you know, like
Michelangelo was gay?
That's what Regis says.
Really? What does he say to, how does he back that up?
Actually, that's a good question. I would love to ask him.
Guys, throw it down in the comments if you know Michelangelo was gay or not.
Yeah, modern, like the first thing was like modern books about Michelangelo no longer try to claim that he was married to his art, he was gay. I mean, you know, this is like something that Regis talks about a lot, is that one of the reasons why Christians were winning the culture war for so long is because they had a space for gay celibate men to like just produce art, you know, the Christian Renaissance, things like that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting thing. It's a very nuanced discussion. You know, I know that this might be difficult for some Christians to listen to because they're like, gay is wrong. And like, yeah, gay sex is wrong.
Yeah,
we know
put it in the comments. Like, this would be a very interesting comment section.
Yeah. I mean, so I also want to say from a personal point, because one of the reasons why Christopher really changed my life is because after I read this book a few years ago, before my husband and I got married, like we were living together. We were living together and we were living in sin. And
before engagement too?
No, we were engaged.
Okay.
But you know, still, I mean, I met Christopher and his mother, and even before I met him, I'd read his book because he came on Candace's show a couple years ago. I And when I met him, I told him, I was like, your book truly changed my life. Like we didn't have a wedding because we wanted to get married. We realized that like we were living in sin, and like what I was doing with my husband before marriage, like it's just as much of a sin as a gay couple living together and having sex. You know what I mean? It's like, and I want young Christians especially to understand this. Like if you are watching porn regularly, if you're living with your boyfriend or girlfriend, you're not married, like you have absolutely no right whatsoever to criticize or condemn gay people.
Well, don't they teach you that? And like one of the earliest Sunday school classes you could ever have is, those without sin cast the first stone. Like, isn't that kind of like, why does that get overlooked so much?
And I think that as Regis on the phone mentioned, he reminded me, he said, remember in the Bible, it's very clear Christians are called to the highest standard. We are called to a much higher standard. And that high standard means that if you are going to point out someone else's sexual sin, you better be sure that you're not living in sexual sin yourself. Now, that doesn't mean that like, if you watched porn like a couple times a year, years ago, like you're living in sin. No, I mean like currently living in sin. You know what I mean? And so I was very convicted. And so that's why my husband and I didn't have a wedding, because we wanted to get married, because I was very convicted. And I of course I felt shameful of that, because it's shameful to live in sin. And I'm very grateful to Christopher for playing that role in my life. I mean, he changed my life before I even met him. And now he's become a good friend. And like I said, he'll be on the show so you guys can meet him. But this is why I just think it's a very nuanced discussion that we need to be having. And so I actually do think that if the Christian communities were honest about the fact that some people have gay urges, and if we made a space for them to be celibate and really like ask them, like, what do you think your purpose is? Because your purpose is not to get married and have kids as a gay person. That's not your purpose. And just like you shouldn't force, and Christopher talks about this in his book, the answer is not to force a gay person to like be straight and then get married and have kids. That's not necessarily what they should be doing. I think that we need to be having a real discussion about welcoming people in who have same-sex urges, teaching them about celibacy and holding them accountable, and helping them find what their purpose is to glorify God.
How hard is it though to change a mind? Because you're talking about gay Christians. What about just gay people in general? I mean, who don't see what they're doing as a sin?
Well, Bryson says, he pointed out that scripture, I forgot what it is, but if you don't call someone out for living in sin, their blood is on your hands.
Yeah.
But if you do call them out, and if they continue living in sin, then their blood's not on your hands.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is. I mean,
but it's like, do you take up like the Westboro Baptist Church mindset of just going up to anybody and who is a homosexual and be like, you're going to hell because you haven't acknowledged your sin?
No.
Are you gonna stand outside with placards saying fags are going to hell and stuff like that?
Yeah, see, that's so wrong. And Regis and I talked about this, because when Regis was a boy, when he was young, he exuded like feminine tendencies. And so when he was a kid, before he even like knew he was gay, because he grew up Christian, he's a devoted Christian, there were people in church telling him, he was condemning him and telling him he was going to go to hell because he acted gay.
Yeah.
That is so wrong. That is wrong. That is not the way that Christians should be acting. Doesn't mean you should accept the gay lifestyle, but just because someone like may like act like they're gay, like if they're living the celibate gay life, like there is a home for them.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a home for them regardless. But do you get what I'm saying? Like the answer.
I understand. I understand the logic of that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, and so that's why I think that this discussion is very nuanced. But going back to relating it to Dave and David, Regis says that one of the reasons why we're seeing gay couples increasingly more and more get married and have kids, because it's like, what else are they going to do? It's like, we don't really provide them with any other options, you know what I mean? And so if we were able to talk about spaces where they could devote their life to a different purpose, because it's not your role as a gay person, as a gay couple, to have kids and get married.
Interesting.
It is a very interesting topic. And like I said, it may be a little bit jarring for some people, because it's just, we're not used to hearing it. I think that's a cultural thing. It's interesting that Regis pointed out, like post-war Christianity is very like, everything's okay, nothing's wrong, gay people don't exist, Yeah. And I can see that, and he's right about that.
Yeah, the initial reaction for me is just like, oh, I don't care. But then I think having a conversation about it is interesting and can be fruitful. I think I'm not well versed enough in that sort of space as far as, looking at it from a Christian point of view, or obviously not from a gay point of view. So this is why I'm sitting here and listening.
From a gay point of view. And all of you who are Googling Regis right now, Regis, I'm doing great, Regis, Gina, Mike, you're not going to find him because that's not his real name.
Good luck.
And you ain't never going to know. He actually talked about coming on the show, like just audio, anonymously. So maybe one day.
Yeah, we put like a little voice modulator on him. So
He's
is that
so
it
great.
concerning or concerning
That's it
that?
for the first 2 points. I mean, we could talk about surrogacy now if you want to.
Well, we can talk about it in a condensed way
Yeah.
and maybe save that for a bigger conversation elsewhere down the line where we can possibly have a guest on to talk about it. But
Yep.
just your initial thoughts about it.
I mean, look, I'll say this. Most cases of surrogacy, it's like, it is very transactional. They go through binders of women who post pictures, their height, their weight, their education, their health history, parents' health history, and people will shop for a womb. I am not down with that.
Yeah, like I said, it's very dystopian.
The very Handmaid's Tale. All those idiot libs who are like, this, the abortion restrictions are so the Handmaid's Tale. No, they're not. It's people renting a womb. That's the Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah.
It's like a woman's body's a commodity to just like pop out a kid for you, like it's some sort of pet.
Yeah. Weird.
It's weird. I don't know. However, I do know, I spoke to somebody probably just a month ago who she had ovarian cancer when she was in high school. And so it was always going to be very difficult to conceive. She got married, I think, fairly young.
Yeah.
And she had her son via surrogacy. But it was a really interesting thing because it's like the woman that gave birth to her son was like, they didn't do it through like an agency. It was a woman who was just willing to do a service for them.
Yeah.
So
Well, she still had to pay that woman, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, I don't know. Look, like I said, I don't even know enough about the industry to like have hard views on it.
Let's find someone in the comments, guys, if you know someone who is either like a surrogacy advocate or a critic of surrogacy, put them in the comments and we'll look them up because I do look through them.
Yeah,
with a
Mike
smile.
does look through them. I try not to look at any of the comments.
I almost, because I got my little black pill guy right there. I almost entertained the thought of putting some funny comments behind me because there was some guy that's like, I can't take your backgrounds. They're different. I like the one that you had of Gina's wall better. That was more, it fit the aesthetic more. So I just wanted to honestly, every time I cut back to me, I was going to have a different background on
comment.
it. Just that's how petty I am, almost to a point where I'm just like, I'm going to mess with one person among hundreds of people just to kind of piss them off because they piss me off. But I'm not going to do that. I got my little guy up there with a black pill.
We're too grown for that.
You want to talk about books? Because I brought books. People are always like, what kind of books are you reading?
Yeah, do books and then we can do questions.
Yeah,
I've got about 20 minutes.
Yeah, I have a stack of books here. So I'll go through them quickly.
This will be the Mike monologue. I'm just going to kick back now.
Yeah, the first one is a book that we had talked about before. This is Unintended Consequences by John Ross.
Oh.
Okay, so this is how thick this hardcover book is. It is, for those out there, it is 860 pages. And it's just one of the best books, especially if you're interested in 2A, anything regarding 2A, Second Amendment, guns, gun rights, gun control. It is a very historically accurate and representative look at all the infringements on the Second Amendment throughout American history. And I mean, of some of my favorite historical fiction novels, the second one being a Michael Crichton book about global warming, which the name escapes me right now, but Unintended Consequences. I mean, a commenter said, yeah, I found one on Amazon, but it was like $150.
Can I borrow it? Have you read it or are you still going through it?
I've read it.
Uh-huh.
It's tough. I won't tell you the background of where I got it just because it could be illegal. But I'm going to put this one down for now. But yes, Unintended Consequences by John Ross. I'll tell you about it off air.
Did you have to murder somebody for it?
No. This is a book I haven't read yet. It's a new book, but it's been sitting on my book. It's called Marxism Unmasked: From Delusion to Destruction by Ludwig von Mises. So that's one of, sorry, the lights are kind of refracting it, but this seems interesting. Mises presents Karl Marx and his place in the history of ideas, the destruction wrought by his dangerous ideology, the manner in which his followers have covered up his errors, and how the Marxists themselves have worked for so long to save Marxism from itself. Mises discusses Marx's claims about history and refutes the smear of the Industrial Revolution. So I think this is pretty interesting and could be useful for those. This author was recommended to me in the comments. People say you should look at Paul Gottfried. So this is his book, Anti-Fascism: The Course of a Crusade. And it basically goes through, I can read the jacket for you at least. Anti-Fascism argues that current self-described anti-fascists are not struggling against the reappearance of interwar fascism, and that the left that claims to be opposing fascism has little in common with any earlier left except for some overlap with critical theorists of the Frankfurt School. Paul Gottfried looks at anti-fascism from its roots in early 20th century Europe to its American manifestation in the present. So I think this is a really interesting book to get any insight on anti-fascism and how the left uses it.
Cool.
From a virtue signaling point of view.
Right.
So I'm about 2 chapters into this one.
Yeah, that's like $35 on Amazon.
And then obviously, bringing up Alan Watts with Jay Dyer is Alan Watts's autobiography, In My Own Way. And it's funny because Alan Watts was born in England, and I think he was born and lived at his childhood home's name is Rowan Tree Garden.
That's his.
Yeah, Rowan Tree.
I'm looking at it right now.
Rowan Tree Cottage. So, the daughter's name and Alan Watts have some sort of cosmic things in common with each other. So we find that kind of cool. And I mean, I really do enjoy Alan Watts and the bit of Eastern mysticism. And yeah, he was actually, I'm pretty sure he was ordained as an Anglican priest. Yeah. Yeah, Alan Watts was ordained as an Anglican priest early on. But I mean, this is the dude. This is the dude, Alan Watts right here. So that's what I'm currently reading. I have other books at home that my problem with reading is I get very distracted by other books. So I'm, 3 chapters in on one book, half the way through another one, just started reading another one. So I find it very difficult to pay attention to reading a book straight through, unless it's a book like Unintended Consequences. I mean, it's 800 and however many, 50 pages almost, but I think I got through it in maybe like a week span, just trying to read as long as I could because it was really, really, really good.
Really?
Yeah, really fascinating.
What year was it published originally?
Early 90s, I think. Maybe 91 or 92. Yeah, really great books. And if there are any more recommendations for books, you guys can throw them in the comments because that's where the Gottfried one came from. But let's answer some questions real quick. There are some pretty interesting ones.
Yeah, what do we got? I mean, I actually...
How much time do you have left? Oh.
I got about 15 minutes. So I forgot. I asked for questions on my page and I didn't get to them, but I think I answered all of them in my rants.
Okay, so let's answer these questions pretty quickly. One comes from Faithfully Exploring. How do I network well without coming on too strong? I can answer this one. I've been networking my whole life. Don't be scared to be direct. Say what you want to say. Say what you want to say in a very short amount of time and be direct as possible. That's how I've networked before. And a little bit of praise that doesn't come off as desperate usually works.
Don't talk about yourself too much. That's never an attractive thing when you're networking.
Heather K. Hubbard says, no questions right now, but I like the debrief episodes.
Well, that's cool.
Guess you got lucky today. How do conservatives affect culture when they hate everything we stand for? I believe we talked about that.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's see here. Oh, we've got this recommendation a couple times. Freedom Tunes? There's a guy named Seamus. He has this Instagram called, and I think there's a YouTube channel called Freedom Tunes. And he kind of makes fun of Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, and just the cartoons are funny, and he does all the voices for them. I would suggest, if you haven't seen him, go take a look at some of them.
Almost 1 million subs.
Yeah, they're really, really funny. So yeah, I'd love to reach out to him at some point and get him on the show for sure. I know he's been on a bunch of other people's shows. I don't want to get into too in-depth questions because we don't have a lot of time. What are your thoughts on how to take care of the homeless problem in America?
Oh, wow. All right, we're talking homeless.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about it on a surface level, you have to obviously address mental illness issues
first. Open the
first.
asylums back up, number 1.
Right.
And stop giving them free stuff, number 2.
Yeah. I've always felt weird because there's always like a bunch of like abandoned government housing that's up and, abandoned housing developments. You know what I mean? That if there were some private charities who really wanted to address the homeless issues, I think that they can kind of take those spaces over and offer them up to people who don't have anywhere to go.
Yeah.
Could be a good thing, but I think addressing mental illness for sure is probably like the top priority.
Top priority,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I don't think that just shoving them into a home would necessarily do the thing. Because they're not homeless because there's nowhere for them to live. They're homeless because of a plethora of mental illness and drug addiction issues.
Yeah. How do you think parents... Oh, do you think parents try to be best friends with their kids because they don't want to be disliked? That could be a reason for some parents. I don't want to say that we speak for all parents and just say yeah. But I think if you have the right sort of relationship with your child, the child's not going to necessarily care if, he or she thinks that you would consider them a friend or not. I don't think that's as a priority for a child. I don't think it's like, God, I want my mom to be my friend so badly. No, you want your mom to be your mom.
Yeah.
You want your dad to be your dad.
Yeah.
There are certain characteristics from either parent that you want as a child.
I do think that there is some selfishness to moms, especially wanting to be BFFs with their kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
everybody wants to be liked. That's
especially women.
Yeah, that's obviously a concern. I think having a great relationship doesn't necessarily make you concerned about that aspect of the relationship with your child. Like, I'm going to make sure I'm going to be as good as a father as I can to be to my daughter. If she wants to call, oh yeah, like my dad's a great friend to me, I wouldn't mind her saying that, but I that's not my role. I'm not your friend.
Yeah.
I'm your father. No friend that you've ever had or will ever have is going to love you and appreciate you in the same way that I do.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel about
my
that.
My mom was never my friend growing up, and it was really, really tough when I was growing up. But
you have to have respect
so
for your
grateful.
parents.
You have
and
to.
I think when you kind of demean that relationship by calling that person a friend, that doesn't serve the respect aspect that you're supposed to have for your parents. Honor thy mother and father, not be friends with them and get margs.
Yeah,
which you can. Here's the thought I wanted to talk about this. Opinion on women who call themselves, quote, dog or cat moms.
Oh, I have huge opinions on that.
I figured you would. My opinion on this is, again, going back to what I said earlier, I hate to like infringe on the happiness of other people. And I know women like this, and I don't want to say that I necessarily feel sad or feel bad for them, but I mean, if they get, I guess I kind of do feel sad for them, because if they get the feeling of having any motherly characteristics towards their pets and not having kids of their own, I feel sad for them. You know what I mean? I know you have feelings about that, but I'm just like, I feel bad. I guess I feel bad.
It's just what's so dumb to me is that you see all of these millennial women who put in their bio, cat mom, dog mom, and these are the same libs who turn around and say that women don't have a natural tendency, a natural need or desire to be a mother.
Yeah, that hypocrisy.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, and no,
totally.
you're not a mom of an animal. You're an owner of an animal, but that
companion maybe
doesn't make you a mom, honey.
Yeah.
Sorry.
What is something that each of you, Niston,
we
love Niston questions. Niston is going to be, he's going to be a part of the show.
So is Joseph Ramos.
Yeah. He didn't ask a question though. Oh, wait, did he? No, he didn't. What is something that each of you would like to accomplish that seems daunting? I tried to think about this question in the car, and at first I was like, related to this show, be the number of subscribers that we would ideally like to see at some point.
Yeah, mine's a little different.
Yeah, but it's not, I wouldn't consider that daunting.
Wait, like in life in general or with this show?
Yeah, no. What is something each of you would like to accomplish that seems daunting?
I want to have a farm. I want to have a farm with...
That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, I want to have a farm and I want to have a pig named Cedric, and I want to have a couple goats and a couple horses and cows, and I want the kids to run around. I don't know why it seems daunting, but it does.
Well, there's a lot of responsibility that goes into that.
Yeah.
We were thinking about getting a duck and naming it Juanita. But that is a reason why hopefully he reaches back out to us, because I know that Owen Benjamin.
Yeah.
Owen Benjamin is a homesteader now. And recently, so he gives people a lot of advice on how to grow their own food, how to raise their own animals.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I confession time. I don't really know much about Owen. I'll have him on the show. I just don't know much about Owen Benjamin. Somebody messaged me and they were like, yeah, you've had Nick on, you've had John on, you've had Gavin on.
But will you have
Owen on? I was like, sure.
Sure, yeah.
Sure, but
I don't care.
What's his deal?
I will have AOC sit right here. I don't care who it is.
She's got good hair.
She's got what Andrew Schultz would call the heavies.
Heavies? She got them heavies.
AOC, after you're out of Congress, which will probably never.
Never, ever.
Will be never. You're more than welcome to come onto the show.
You're too much of a fraud to come on the show. Wait,
actually, here's the thing that Joe Kent said that a lot of people are throwing him on the coals for, and I know Nick was, because Joe Kent was on some show and they were like, the host was like, would you sit down with AOC and talk to her and find out about why she thinks the way that she does? And Joe Kent was like, yeah, I mean, we gotta have talks to these people who we vehemently disagree with and blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, I get that from a political person's point of view.
He was trying to be inclusive.
Trying to be inclusive. You can be inclusive with that side, but not inclusive within the different types of conservatives. So I get that. As far as having a show that is about discourse and entertainment, yeah, I'd have AOC and her heavies on the show anytime.
Oh boy.
Okay, how about daunting, but Niston, I would say the same thing with Gina. I think owning land would probably be like the most daunting thing that I would like to accomplish. We'll end on this one, and this is from English Sanctuary Cottage. Should I say it in an English accent? Gina, what are your thoughts on mother's work ethics inside and outside the home? That was awful. What are your thoughts on mother's work ethics inside and outside the home?
I don't know if I understand the question, but I'll answer it to the way I understand it. Like, do you mean
what are your thoughts on mother's
like
work
the way that
ethics
mothers divvy up their work inside the home and outside the home?
I guess so. I guess because there was a criticism of you talking and being very not animated, but being very fired up and charged about the role of women and not being able to be like a working mother or something like that. And people are like, well, she has her fucking show, blah, 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 blah.
Oh, yeah. Someone got mad because they're like, she does fitness stuff. I'm like, yeah, I work out and I film a show twice a week.
Oh, my God. How dare you neglect your child?
Which is so funny to me because this is why, like, even conservatives, I think, have a stereotypical view of what the 1950s housewife is, right? And if you like kick it way back to like ancestors, do you think that like back in the day, moms did nothing else but like sit at home all day with the kids? Like they were out in the field working, like they were sewing and creating clothes. Yeah. They were, they were participating in trade. Like they had to part of being in the family unit because before the industrialized society, the family unit was the business. Like the mother and the father had to create had to farm and make food and sell things and create things together. Like that was a family unit. So like, my husband and I have our own family unit. Like we do a little health and fitness and podcast business.
Yeah.
But so what do I think about women's work? Here's what I think about women's work ethics inside and outside the home. I mean, I think that we've talked about this before. You can't do full time of both. It's just, you have to choose,
Yeah.
And that's why I always refer to this book called Being There by Erica Kozmar or something like that. She talks about the first 3 years of the child's life. It's like extremely important to be present. Mm-hmm. And she understands that, like, especially in modern society, the way that our economy is set up, like a lot of moms do have to work.
Yeah. And I mean, truthfully, like this show can be shot during a nap.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. So
like, and it's literally like the only 4 hours a week I'm away from her is when I'm doing these 2 shows a week.
Yeah. Out of the week.
Yeah, exactly.
A whole week.
And she says that like the most important thing is that even working mothers, that you work from home or you're with them, like being present with the child is really the most important thing. So going back to like, I guess work ethic, I still don't really understand the question. I think what I would say is the most important thing is that when you're with your child, you're 100% present and you're able to make your child and your family the priority.
Yes.
That doesn't mean you can't ever work. Like, I think that is a very, not stereotypical, but like not perverted. What's the word I'm looking for? I guess stereotypical is a word. It's like a very stereotypical caricature. It's a caricature of what it means to be a mom, that you can't do anything else but be with your child all day long and just be next to them and play with them and look at them. Like, no, like families, there are different things that you have to do in your life. And some moms, like, they do have to work. And so as long as you're putting the family and the children as the primary priority, I think, you're going to win in the end.
Yeah, nice. Great. We
Right.
covered it. I was about to say, guess what, guys? I didn't blaspheme today. But then I was like, I'm not a Christian. So there you go.
Well,
there's always an opportunity on this show for me to blaspheme.
the people are going to be upset that they don't have anything to be upset at you about.
There's always going to be something.
find something.
Someone said my eyes are too close together and my face is too long.
I don't even want to know what they spoke. Whatever. I don't read the comments. Whatever.
You're
guys
just
can.
jealous because your eyes are too far apart and your face is too short. You want what you can't have.
You're just jealous of his green screen.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye-bye-bye. I'm going to go see Landon.